It was early morning on May 17th, 2005, when a 911 call came in from a quiet neighborhood in Alexandria, Kentucky. A woman was screaming. She said someone had broken into her home and shot her husband. When police arrived, they found the house in chaos. Drawers were pulled open, furniture was overturned, and shattered glass from a broken door littered the floor. Inside the bedroom, they discovered a man's lifeless body. At first glance, it looked like a robbery gone wrong. But something felt off. The story wasn't lining up. The children remembered details differently. Then, investigators found something hidden deep inside the washing machine. Something that changed everything. What really happened inside the Bosley home that morning? And why would anyone want Bob Bosley dead? The answer stunned everyone. Robert Bob Bosley was born on August 2, 1962, in the quiet town of Alexandria, nestled in Campbell County, Kentucky. He grew up in a tight-knit religious family alongside his siblings, Deborah, Henry Jr., and James. Even as a kid, Bob showed signs of being sharp, driven, and determined to carve his own path. While much of his early life isn't widely documented, one thing is clear: Bob was a visionary. Before even reaching adulthood, he was already chasing success. He started small, offering chimney cleaning and minor roof repairs. With long hours, low prices, and a relentless work ethic, Bob built a reputation as a friendly and dependable worker. His hard work paid off. Over time, Bob grew his solo hustle into a booming business, Bosley Roofing and Chimney Sweep of Alexandria. Known for quality, speed, and trustworthiness, the company thrived under Bob's leadership, bringing in loyal clients and serious profits. As the money rolled in, Bob kept building. He began investing in rental properties, eventually owning around 20. These ventures pushed his income even higher, earning him a reputation as one of the area's most successful businessmen. With wealth came lifestyle. Bob didn't hold back. He drove flashy sports cars, kept horses, owned an airplane, and had an impressive arsenal of high-end firearms. But perhaps most famous of all was his massive boat on Lake Cumberland, known for wild, adults-only parties packed with music, alcohol, and barely dressed guests. It was at a local restaurant, one of Bob's favorites, where he met 18-year-old Amy Pave. Like Bob, Amy was from Alexandria, but her background was far more modest. Born in 1969 to a working-class family, Amy's childhood was marked by financial struggle and her father's battle with alcoholism. Still, Amy was determined to rise above it. After graduating high school with top honors in 1986, she enrolled in business classes at a local community college linked to Northern Kentucky University. To cover tuition, she worked as a waitress. That's when Bob entered her life. He was older, wealthy, and full of charm. Amy, initially reserved, soon found herself swept up in his world. She started attending Bob's infamous lake parties and quickly became a regular in his inner circle. But Amy didn't remain just another party guest. She won Bob's heart. Their relationship deepened, and after 4 years together, they got married. For Amy, it was a complete transformation. She had gone from a modest upbringing to marrying one of the region's most eligible and wealthy bachelors. Before long, they started a family. Their daughter, Morgan, was born in 1996, and their son, Trevor, followed 3 years later. Amy, once the life of the party, took on a new role. Her wild weekends gave way to school drop-offs, soccer games, and PTA meetings. She embraced motherhood, while Bob continued growing his business empire. But there was one thing Bob hated: paperwork. Managing payroll, taxes, invoices, and contractor schedules felt like a prison to him. He craved the freedom of the open lake far more than the confines of an office. Weekends often meant Bob disappearing for days aboard his boat. He wouldn't say where he was going or with whom. Friends would later say. Friends recalled that Bob had started pulling away from his family, drawn once again into a lifestyle of indulgence and secrecy. Some even claimed that he and Amy had an open relationship. Whether or not that was true, Bob eventually made a choice that brought his personal and professional life closer together. Since Amy had studied business administration, Bob asked her to take over the company's finances and office duties. At first, she seemed unsure, but eventually she agreed. From that point on, she managed payroll, bookkeeping, taxes, and all the company's administrative responsibilities. The business was thriving, and by all appearances, so were the Bosleys. They lived in a rustic log cabin tucked deep in the woods, south of Alexandria, using it as a temporary home while their dream house was being built nearby. The new estate would sprawl across 14 acres, complete with stained glass windows, a stone tower, and even Gothic gargoyles. To outsiders, the Bosleys seemed like the perfect success story. They were attractive, wealthy, involved in their community, and active in both church and their children's school events. Bob was known for donating his company's services to low-income families. His name was widely respected in town, but like many fairy tales, their story had a dark underside. Behind the scenes, Amy's role gave her full access to the company's finances. And while Bob stayed busy juggling business growth, the lake, and construction on their new home, Amy quietly began rerouting funds. Instead of paying company taxes, she siphoned money into a hidden personal account. The embezzlement went unnoticed for years. But no one escapes the IRS forever. The Internal Revenue Service had been monitoring the missing payments. They sent letters, made phone calls, and even tried to schedule meetings. Bob, however, never saw any of it. That's because Amy had all IRS correspondence sent to a private mailbox, one only she could access. She knew the government was closing it, but maybe she thought she could keep the ruse going forever. Everything changed on the morning of Tuesday, May 17th, 2005, just days before what would have been the couple's 15th wedding anniversary. Around 5 a.m., a panicked 911 call came in from Amy Bosley. Her frantic voice filled the line until the call was suddenly cut short by the sound of a loud crash. Dispatchers tried to reconnect, but couldn't. Minutes later, law enforcement raced toward the Bosley cabin. When officers arrived, they found Amy in shock, clinging to her children. Her sister soon showed up to take the kids, while Amy was taken in for questioning. Police locked down the scene and called in the crime scene unit. At first light, more officers joined the search, scouring the surrounding woods with K-9 units and even a helicopter, convinced an intruder had escaped into the forest. Inside the bedroom, they found Bob's lifeless body. He was kneeling beside the bed, slumped forward, riddled with gunshot wounds. Oddly, only 2 shell casings were found, raising more questions than answers. Instead of providing clarity, the scene only deepened the mystery. And as investigators combed through the evidence, they began to suspect that something didn't add up. Not just the scene, but the whole story. Other than the kids' bedrooms, the house was in complete disarray. Kitchen cabinets were thrown wide open, including those beneath the sink, a strange place for a burglar to search. A rear door had a broken window, supposedly where the intruder entered, but most of the shattered glass was outside, not inside. That inconsistency set off alarms for investigators. The signs of a break-in continued. In the bathroom, the mirrored cabinet was ajar, and prescription bottles were scattered across the floor. But it didn't look like the result of a panicked thief. It looked staged, like chaos meant to deceive. And based on Amy's 911 call, the attacker had fled quickly. So why all the mess? While the forensics team worked through the house, detectives began interviewing Amy Bosley at the station. She seemed shaken and distraught, but also confused, struggling at times to keep her story consistent. She described the intruder as a white male with a nasal voice, bad breath, and a distinct smell of urine. According to her, he had broken in during the night and attacked both her and Bob. Amy showed 2 marks on her chest, claiming they were injuries from the struggle. When asked who might have wanted to hurt Bob, Amy suggested he wasn't well liked. She mentioned his wild lifestyle and said he may have made enemies, especially among former employees. She specifically named Noah Heim, a contractor and longtime friend of Bob's, saying the two had argued recently, but Noah was quickly ruled out. He had a rock-solid alibi and was devastated by Bob's death. Bob's death sent shockwaves through the Alexandria community. Panic set in fast. Schools were shut down for several days as fear spread. Was a killer still out there? Neighbors couldn't make sense of it. Bob had always been seen as kind, generous, the type of man who'd give you the shirt off his back. And now he'd been gunned down, slaughtered in his own home. Back at the Bosley cabin, investigators searched for answers. Only 2 shell casings were found near Bob's body, despite multiple gunshot wounds. That detail didn't sit right, so police expanded their search to the basement. Inside the family's washing machine, they found wet clothing, and at the very bottom, wrapped in cloth, 4 more shell casings. It made no sense. Why would a fleeing killer take time to hide evidence in the victim's own washing machine? Even more puzzling, investigators discovered an aluminum baseball bat nearby. It had fresh scratches and white residue. It was logged as potential evidence. Pending lab analysis. For now, Amy Bosley was released and reunited with her children. But the evidence was slowly stacking up. The crime scene looked staged. Valuables, including visible stacks of cash, hadn't been touched. Amy's emotional display didn't ring true. No real tears, no genuine grief. Investigators sensed something. Deeper was at play. Then came the breakthrough. IRS officials showed up at the police station after hearing about Bob's murder. They'd been trying to contact him for months over an enormous unpaid tax bill, more than $1.7 million. A face-to-face meeting had been scheduled for the very day. Bob was found dead. But the agents revealed something even more bizarre. In a previous phone call, someone had answered pretending to be Bob. The voice was odd, high-pitched, clearly unnatural. It sounded like a woman trying to sound like a man. They were certain that voice belonged to Amy. Now, the motive came into focus. Amy trusted with the company's finances, had been embezzling money for years. Instead of paying taxes, she funneled hundreds of thousands into a secret account. Bob had no idea, but the IRS did. And they were closing in fast. Complicating matters were Bob's alleged affairs. His sister later told police she'd once overheard Amy say, "If Bob ever cheats or leaves me, I'll shoot him." At the time, it sounded like a joke. Now, it sounded like a promise. Still, Amy Bosley denied everything. During her second interrogation, she insisted she loved Bob. Sure, their marriage had problems. What marriage didn't? But she claimed she would never hurt the father of her children. But investigators weren't buying it. Ballistics confirmed all 6 bullets that hit. Bob matched the 6 casings, 2 found in the bedroom and 4 hidden in the laundry. Then came a pivotal piece of the puzzle. The children's statements. Morgan and Trevor, Bosley, just 9 and 6 years old, were interviewed separately. Their accounts were identical. They said they had gone to bed peacefully, only to be awakened by 6 loud gunshots, then the sound of glass shattering. But Amy had told police the opposite, that the glass broke first. Then came the shots. Her story was falling apart. Even the marks on her chest, which she'd claimed were injuries from struggling with the intruder, looked suspicious. The wounds were too symmetrical, too clean. More like stage scratches than actual defensive injuries. And the blouse she wore that morning? It hadn't been torn in a fight. It had been cut with scissors, then ripped, to make it look like damage from an attack. Less than 2 weeks after Bob's murder, authorities arrested Amy Bosley and formally charged her with homicide. One last missing piece remained: the murder weapon. That, too, eventually surfaced, though how it was found is still debated. One account says a pistol from Bob's gun collection was discovered in Amy's handbag, hidden behind a wardrobe. Another version claims Amy's sister found it after taking custody of the kids and their belongings. While sorting through Amy's purse, she allegedly found the weapon and contacted a lawyer, who turned it in. Whichever version is true, the gun was tested and matched the 6 shell casings from the scene. The bullets inside Bob's body were too damaged for a direct match, but the circumstantial evidence was overwhelming. When the trial began, prosecutors painted a clear, damning picture. For years, Amy Bosley had been draining Bob's company dry. She redirected mail, dodged IRS calls, and forged his voice over the phone. But her time was up. The IRS had scheduled a meeting with Bob on May 17, 2005. That meeting meant the truth would come out, exposing the fraud, destroying her marriage, and likely landing her in prison. So, Amy acted. That night, with her children sleeping just down the hall and her husband unaware, Amy quietly took one of Bob's own guns. Some reports even suggest she sedated the children beforehand. Standing by the bed as Bob slept, she pulled the trigger. Bob was wounded, but not killed. He woke up and tried to stop her. According to investigators, the angle of his wounds showed he lunged at the shooter, only to realize too late it was Amy. Bleeding, shocked, and betrayed, Bob couldn't overpower her. She fired again. By the time it was over, the man who had built a fortune from nothing, who had trusted Amy with everything, was dead in the very home they were building for their future. And the woman who once stood beside him now stood accused of orchestrating his execution, not out of fear, but out of greed. Amy Bosley's carefully curated life of luxury and respect crumbled in one cold, calculated night. What remained was a shattered family, a stunned community, and the legacy of betrayal that would never be forgotten. She had broken the rear glass door with a baseball bat, ransacked cabinets and drawers to stage a robbery, and hid 4 spent shell casings wrapped in cloth at the bottom of the washing machine. To make her injuries appear credible, Amy lightly cut her own chest, likely with scissors, and then slashed her blouse to simulate a violent struggle. She ended her performance with a desperate-sounding 911 call, her voice frantic, the scene carefully staged. But the forensic evidence told a very different story. Lab results confirmed that the glass fragments found on the aluminum bat matched the broken rear door. The bat, identified by her children as belonging to the family, hadn't been used by an intruder. It had been a prop in Amy's carefully orchestrated lie. Police found no signs of forced entry. No footprints. No tire tracks. No one matching Amy's description of the killer. No one had come or gone that night. Meanwhile, investigators uncovered cracks in the Bosleys' marriage. Amy believed Bob had been unfaithful. Photos found in the couple's safe taken during wild lake parties revealed a second life and confirmed at least one affair. But while infidelity may have been the spark, the motive went much deeper. Amy's secret was unraveling fast. She had embezzled nearly $2 million from her husband's company by diverting funds and failing to pay the IRS. A meeting with the tax agency had been scheduled with Bob for the morning after his murder. That meeting would have exposed everything. In Amy's mind, killing him was the only way to bury the truth. She thought that with Bob gone, his assets would cover the debt, and she could walk away with the rest. But her plan began to collapse under the weight of truth. Her children's testimony, that they heard gunshots before the sound of breaking glass, shattered her timeline. And though her defense claimed the shell casings could have come from Bob's pockets after a day at the shooting range, The evidence was overwhelming. Still, Amy's attorney fought hard. He pointed out there were no eyewitnesses, no DNA, no clear link between the bullets in Bob's body and the casings found at the scene. There was enough ambiguity to raise doubts. Prosecutors, concerned she might beat the charges and unwilling to put the Bosley children through the trauma of testifying against their mother, offered a plea deal. Amy would avoid a trial, spare her children the ordeal, and accept a reduced sentence in exchange for admitting guilt, though she never revealed where the stolen millions went. On November 2, 2006, Amy Bosley walked into a Campbell County courtroom wearing a green and white prison jumpsuit. Her face was unreadable. Before sentencing, Bob's family addressed her directly. His brother James called her a liar and a fraud. He warned that while she might one day walk free, she would never escape the weight of her crimes. Every night, he said, you'll see Bob's face and the tears of the children you orphaned. Deborah, Bob's sister, looked straight at Amy and asked the one question no one could shake. Did he beg you to stop? No one would ever know. Then Bob's mother, Audrey, trembling, heartbroken, read a letter filled with grief, mourning a final goodbye that never came. Amy sat in silence, eyes fixed on the floor, wiping away tears. Bound by the plea agreement, the judge sentenced Amy Bosley to 20 years in prison. Under Kentucky law, she would be eligible for parole after serving 85% of her sentence, 17 years, behind bars. On May 17, 2022, exactly 17 years after Bob's murder, Amy Bosley, now 54 years old, was released from the Kentucky Correctional Institution for Women. Her release barely made headlines. Her current whereabouts remain unknown, though some believe she may be quietly searching for the millions she siphoned away. As for Bob, his final resting place is St. Stephen's Cemetery in Campbell County, Kentucky, a man remembered for his generosity, ambition, and love for his family, taken by the one person he trusted most. In hindsight, Amy's actions seem not just brutal, but senseless. She wasn't destitute. Her husband wasn't cruel. The IRS might have offered a settlement. If revenge was the motive, divorce could have left her richer and free. Instead, she chose murder. And as Benjamin Franklin once said, in a line echoed through American history, nothing is certain except death and taxes. In Amy Bosley's case, both came calling. Thanks for tuning in to Shocking True Crime Tales.